Manhattan. Not the Manhattan from the movies. The Manhattan of unmarked doors, cold corridors, and rooms where nobody speaks loudly. Inside, two FBI agents stare at a screen. No car chase, no siren, no helicopter, just an audio file. They press play. And then, the impossible happens. El Chapo's voice fills the room. Not an interview, not a rumor. A real conversation. Intimate, as if the world's most hunted man were sitting across the table. The agents look at each other as if they just witnessed something that shouldn't exist. Because for years the rule was clear. Nobody listens to his calls. He lived in silence. And now, there, in the heart of New York City, they are hearing everything. The promise of this story is simple and terrifying. If they are listening, someone opened the door from inside. And this door has a name, age, and one detail that changes everything. It's not a cop. It's not a soldier. It's a technician. The informant is inside the room. While agents in Manhattan listen to that voice with wide eyes, on the other side of the continent, there is a small room, somewhere where nobody gives an address. Dim light, closed curtains, and a young man sitting in front of a computer. He is 24 years old. Surrounding him, armed men stand guard, as if the air could betray. Cold stares, impatience, the kind of silence that allows no questions. On the screen, he monitors connections, signals, invisible routes. And, simultaneously, he does something that, if discovered, offers no second chance. He is routing every word of the boss to the FBI. It's not a metaphor. It's not romantic bravery. It's survival in its rawest form. Because in that world, the mistake is not getting fired. The mistake is disappearing. And the cruelest thing, he is not infiltrated in an enemy base. He is inside the house of the very empire. His name is Christian Rodriguez, and the nickname that describes what he did is almost poetic. The architect of silence. Who is Christian? The nerd who became the devil's tool. Christian doesn't seem like a war character. He is not the man with the truck. He is not the man with the gun. He is not the man who shouts. He is the man with the cable, with the notebook, with the word configure, said calmly. A boy too talented for the place where he was born, and too early to understand where he was stepping. And that's how the kind of story that ends badly begins. A young man who knows how to build invisible paths gets invited to work for people who only know paths of blood. He enters not for ideology, he enters for utility. Because even the most feared criminal in the world has a weakness. He depends on ordinary people to make the empire possible. And when the empire decides to modernize, it needs someone who understands the modern world. Christian becomes that someone. He creates a structure that is not a secure phone. It's more dangerous than that. He creates an ecosystem, a private, discrete network with adapted devices, private routes, servers far from immediate reach, a parallel internet where the cartel talks and the rest of the world does not listen. And suddenly, the chase goes blind. The DEA enters into silence. The FBI enters into silence. And silence, in this case, is not peace. It is protection. The invisible cartel, when crime becomes technology. For decades, the war on drugs was thought of as roads, planes, boats, borders. But the 21st century changes the nature of power. The new territory is invisible. It's not enough to have roots. You must have communication. And communication, at that level, is everything. Christian sets up an infrastructure with a simple logic. If no one intercepts, no one anticipates. If no one anticipates, no one captures. The result is almost humiliating for the authorities. The investigators see movements, see effects, see indirect traces, but they can't hear the brain behind the body. And when you don't hear the brain, the war becomes trial and error. Except perfect systems don't exist. And the tragedy begins with a detail too small to make a movie out of, but too big to ignore. the error that humanizes and puts everyone at risk for a period, the system fails. Not because someone hacked it, not because a rival blew up an antenna, but because of something banal. A technical problem, a breach, an expired license, a component that stops. The kind of thing any IT person dreads. The network becomes unstable for hours, then for days. And then the unthinkable happens. To avoid halting operations, powerful people resort to Plan B. Common cell phones, improvised solutions, less secure communication, and suddenly, signals appear. For the cartel, this is an internal risk. If the network went down, someone failed, and someone is going to pay. For the authorities, this becomes an external lead. Traffic appears, patterns emerge, connections come to life for brief moments. It's as if a submarine, for 72 hours, was forced to surface. And when a submarine surfaces, someone takes a photo. The FBI begins to compile a dossier, and at its center, there's not a gunman. There's a technician. The FBI trap, the Russian who doesn't exist. The FBI understands a simple truth. If you want to hear the king, you first need to win over the wireman. So they create a setup, a fake client, a fake criminal, a Russian who doesn't exist, but who seems real enough to attract someone who sells discretion. The meeting takes place in Manhattan, in a hotel like many others, where luxury makes everything seem normal. Christian arrives thinking it's just work. A new client wants security, wants secure communication. But on the other side of the table, there's no business. There's a wall. The agents show that they know too much. Names, dates, calls, functions, and then they offer the dilemma that shatters any illusion. You can cooperate, or you can rot in prison. And even in prison, the risk continues, because the cartel does not forget. Christian understands in seconds what is happening. He is not being invited to be a hero. He is being pushed towards an impossible decision. And this is what makes the story believable. He doesn't choose for glory. He chooses by instinct, survive, or be loyal to the system he himself built.
Copy that. Ready for
The most audacious plan: take over the network without the cartel. Noticing the FBI wants more than an informant. They want the heart of the empire, the network. But you can't just invade something like that without raising an alarm. So the strategy is almost surgical. Move the infrastructure to a new location in a way that looks routine. Migrate servers, redirect paths, make it look like an update. But this requires one thing. Christian needs to convince El Chapo. And convincing El Chapo is not like convincing an ordinary boss. It means convincing a man who trusts no one and who has learned to see threats, even in silence. The idea is simple and insane at the same time. Move what keeps the cartel invisible to a place where allied authorities have access. If it works, the FBI starts listening in. If it fails, Christian doesn't go back home. He has no escape plan. He only has seconds of margin between a decision and the end. The key scene: real-time migration under armed eyes. A safe house. It's not a lab, it's not an office. It's an improvised place. Simple walls, harsh light, old cigarette smell. Christian opens his computer. His hands seem steady, but his whole body is on alert. A guard watches, not with curiosity, with vigilance. The kind of look that says, if it fails, it's your fault. And if it's your fault, there's no excuse. Christian starts migrating data. Files, configurations, routes, keys, everything that must not fail. On the screen, a progress bar moves slowly. Every percentage is a minute of life. The rain outside intensifies. The power flickers. The atmosphere feels tighter. And then, the moment that glues anyone to their seat. A notification appears. An error. A red that shouldn't be there. The connection drops for a second. 2. And in the real world, that's the kind of failure that turns into panic. Because if the boss's call drops, someone is to blame. And the culprit is right there, sitting, with a notebook on their lap. Christian feels a chill at the back of his neck. The guard takes a step forward. The silence turns into a physical threat. And what he does at that moment is not bravery. It's desperate improvisation. He takes a short breath, adjusts what he can, reconfigures under pressure, maintains his composure like someone holding a cup filled to the brim without spilling. The bar starts progressing again. The call resumes, and nobody in that room speaks, but everyone understands. For a few seconds, Christian's life was hanging on an invisible line, and he won. Not because he was stronger, but because he was the only one who knew how it worked. The psychological hell of the double agent. From that point, the FBI starts receiving calls like rain, daily conversations, operational details, instructions, names, habits. And Christian turns into what he feared the most: tech support for the devil. By day, he handles the cartel's demands. Fix this. Update that. Make sure no one is listening. By night, he delivers information to the FBI, sometimes through small files, sometimes through quick meetings. He lives in two worlds, but belongs to none. His mind starts to break from within. He sleeps little, eats poorly, the body loses weight, his hands tremble at random moments. This is not a movie scene. It's real wear and tear. Fear isn't an explosion, it's a drip. Paranoia becomes routine. A noise in the hallway, a car parked for too long, a glance that lasts a second too long. And the worst? He overhears conversations that weigh on his conscience. Not as a spectacle, but as a constant reminder that he helped build the cage where lives were decided. He doesn't become a hero. He becomes a broken man. And yet,
at midnight,
he continues, because going back is impossible. The turning point, the king's coordinates, until one day, among dozens of calls, comes the piece that completes the puzzle. It's not a dramatic confession. It's not a monologue. It's something simple, a schedule detail, a place, a movement, a pattern. And the listener understands immediately. It's enough to locate El Chapo. Manhattan, again. The room, the bunker, the screen. The voice on the audio doesn't know it's being heard. The agents exchange few words because they don't need many. Endgame. But endgame doesn't mean a beautiful ending. It means operation. It means risk. It means that, from now on, everything speeds up. And somewhere, Christian realizes he has crossed the point of no return. If the king falls, the empire will look for the reason. And the reason is him. The capture, the payoff from broken silence, Los Mochis. Early morning. The capture is not cinematic in a glamorous way. It's tense, confusing, fast, like almost everything in real life. El Chapo tries to escape. The body reacts before the mind. The instinct tries to find an exit where there is none. But the difference now is that the net is not guessing. The net has heard. Every recorded call, every taped conversation, every piece of routine gathered, pushes the board to the point where there is no more room. And the man who seemed untouchable falls. Not because someone was more violent, but because someone was more patient. And that patience has a name: Christian. The ghost who brings down the king is not a rival. He's the technician. The trial, when the voice itself becomes evidence courtroom. And then comes the perfect closure to this story. The silence becomes public exposure. The calls are presented. The voice is recognizable. The crime king, sitting before the system he tried to deceive for decades, hears his own past return as evidence. And then Christian appears, not as a film protagonist, as a witness. An ordinary man, with an ordinary appearance, with a history that doesn't seem epic, but that changed the fate of an empire. And there is a moment that no one forgets. When the king's gaze meets the technician's gaze, there is no shout, there is no theatrical scene, just a silent understanding. It was you, and in that second, the audience feels the entire weight of the story. The cartel's greatest power depended on a man who only wanted to control signals. The architect turns into a ghost. In the end, the irony is almost cruel. El Chapo wanted invisibility. Christian built invisibility. The FBI made the network visible. El Chapo was exposed. And then, the circle closes. Christian, the architect, needs to disappear. Witness protection. New name. New life. Face erased from his own past. He earns his life and loses his identity. He saves his own skin and pays with what made him human, belonging. And the final image is not one of victory. It's of a man who learned, in the worst way, that technology is not neutral. That building a system for monsters comes with a price. And that, in the real world, the end game never ends with complete relief. Because some empires fall, and the ghosts that bring them down keep wandering around, invisible, forever.
Signal continues.
In that cold room in Manhattan, two agents heard the impossible. But the impossible was not born of magic. It was born of a desperate choice, made by a 24-year-old boy in a locked room with armed men behind him, and a blinking cursor on the screen like a ticking clock. And maybe that's the scariest part of all. The crime kingpin didn't fall to an army. He fell because someone in technical support hit enter